Officials say all leads remain open after Sunday's robbery of crown jewels in the Paris Louvre Museum as they examine a vest and other equipment left behind at the scene. Meanwhile, new video appears to show a suspect calmly breaking into a glass display containing the stolen jewels.
A high-security museum, priceless royal jewels, and a robbery that lasted under 7 minutes. France is calling it a national embarrassment. But beyond the headlines, this story has reopened an old wound about stolen art, colonial history, and who really owns culture. Today we're breaking down the Louvre robbery, the ongoing investigation, and why this incident is forcing people to question not just how the crime happened, but why so many people aren't sympathetic to the Louvre at all. On a quiet Sunday morning, Paris woke up to news that shocked the art world. Officials confirmed a robbery inside the Louvre Museum, one of the most famous cultural institutions on the planet. 9 pieces of royal jewelry, including tiaras, emerald necklaces, diamond brooches, and even a crown belonging to Empress Eugénie, the wife of Napoleon III, were stolen in what authorities are now calling one of the most audacious museum thefts in decades. Security footage shows the suspects working with surgical precision. At least 4 men, dressed as construction workers, arrived in a utility truck fitted with a lift ladder. The vehicle was parked near a side entrance of the museum, a move that didn't raise suspicion since maintenance work happens regularly at the Louvre. Within minutes, the thieves were on the 2nd floor, right inside the section displaying France's crown jewels. Armed with angle grinders, they cut through reinforced glass cases, grabbed the jewelry, and disappeared, all in under 7 minutes. French authorities later described it as a professional job, possibly the work of an organized criminal group specializing in art theft. According to police reports, the suspects attempted to set the truck on fire before escaping, likely to destroy forensic evidence. But a museum worker intervened before it could burn completely. They then made their getaway on scooters, vanishing into the streets of Paris before police could respond. By the time investigators arrived, the thieves were gone, leaving behind a few tools, the burned-out lift truck, and a trail of humiliation for France's most prestigious museum. Within hours, the Louvre was shut down for investigation. The French Minister of Culture called it a national tragedy and a cultural loss for the world. Officials scrambled to tighten security protocols, while law enforcement worked around the clock, combing through video footage, fingerprints, and the equipment left at the scene. A video obtained by BFM TV appeared to show one of the suspects calmly breaking into the glass display, without panic, without rushing, indicating that the group knew exactly what they were doing. Experts compared the theft to legendary art crimes such as the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist in Boston, or even the 1911 theft of the Mona Lisa, which also happened at the Louvre. A French police spokesperson summarized it bluntly. This operation lasted less than 5 minutes. These are professionals. Organized crime has clearly shifted toward targeting museums and art collections, because France's heritage is both valuable and vulnerable. For France, this wasn't just a robbery. It was a reputational blow. But as the country mourned its missing jewels, a very different conversation began to spread online. While traditional media framed the heist as a devastating crime against culture, many voices, especially from the African diaspora, pointed out a deep irony. Comedian Katt Williams was one of the first to address it publicly, but his comments echoed a much larger sentiment. He questioned why people should feel sympathy for a museum that itself holds thousands of items taken from colonized nations. Williams and many historians have long argued that European museums, including the Louvre, were built on looted artifacts from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, taken during centuries of imperial expansion. For them, the idea that the Louvre could be robbed was ironic. As one historian put it, you cannot be robbed of what you already stole. The criticism isn't new. For years, European museums have faced pressure to return stolen cultural artifacts to their countries of origin. The Louvre, along with the British Museum and Vatican collections, houses some of the most significant relics of African and Middle Eastern history. Objects taken during colonial rule, often by force or deception. To understand why this debate resurfaced, you have to go back centuries. During the colonial era, European powers invaded and occupied vast territories across Africa and Asia. In the process, they plundered royal palaces, temples, and sacred sites, shipping back whatever they could carry. These objects, from masks and sculptures to jewelry and spiritual artifacts, were often presented in museums as gifts of civilization or scientific discoveries. One of the most infamous examples is the case of the Benin bronzes. In 1897, British soldiers invaded the Kingdom of Benin, modern-day Nigeria. They burned the royal palace to the ground, exiled the king, and looted thousands of bronze and ivory sculptures. Royal plaques, ceremonial masks, and religious artworks dating back centuries. These were not mere decorations. They were historical records of Benin's political and spiritual life. Many of these artifacts ended up in London, Berlin, and Paris. Some were auctioned to private collectors, while others went straight into national museums. The British Museum still holds hundreds of Benin bronzes today. France also possesses a number of pieces in the Louvre and the Musée du Quai Branly, a museum that currently houses over 70,000 artifacts from sub-Saharan Africa alone. Historians describe it as one of the largest single collections of colonial loot on Earth. Egypt provides another example of how deeply entrenched this issue is. Napoleon's army invaded Egypt in 1798, and among the soldiers were scholars and collectors who systematically removed artifacts. Everything from stone coffins and statues to golden masks and mummies. Those items filled French museums for centuries and became cornerstones of European classical art studies. But the reality is that much of that material was taken without consent, often stripped directly from tombs and temples. The Louvre's Egyptian Antiquities section today remains one of its most visited, yet few visitors realize how many of those objects were obtained during colonial campaigns. The issue extends beyond France and Britain. In Belgium, the Royal Museum for Central Africa still displays thousands of objects taken from the Congo during King Leopold II's brutal rule, a regime that killed millions of Africans through forced labor, violence, and starvation. The museum has long been criticized for downplaying these atrocities while celebrating Belgium's so-called civilizing mission. So when European nations today describe the Louvre heist as a cultural disaster, many people see hypocrisy. Because for generations, European powers did the exact same thing. On a global scale, they removed sacred objects, erased cultural identities, and rebranded the artifacts as world heritage. And when African nations began demanding them back, Europe's response was usually one of delay or denial. In 2017, French President Emmanuel Macron publicly promised to return stolen African art. He even commissioned a report revealing that up to 90% of Africa's cultural heritage is currently held outside the continent, mostly in Western museums and private collections. But despite the promise, only a small fraction of those artifacts have actually been returned. This is where the irony hits hardest. When someone steals from Europe's museums, it's a global scandal. But when those same museums refuse to return stolen artifacts, it's called preservation. French media described the Louvre robbery as a devastating loss for humanity. Yet when Nigeria asked for the Benin bronzes to be returned, Britain's response was, "We'll loan them to you." loan them, as if the rightful owners needed permission to borrow their own cultural heritage. That contradiction is what made this Louvre robbery different. It wasn't just about 9 missing jewels. It reopened a conversation about who truly owns history and how Western institutions have benefited from centuries of cultural exploitation. Many online commentators echoed Katt Williams' point that the Louvre, a museum filled with artifacts taken from colonized nations, now being robbed of its own treasures, is a moment filled with historical irony. No one's saying the robbery was justified, but it certainly shifted public sympathy. For art crime investigators, the Louvre heist represents a sophisticated and targeted operation. Experts believe the jewels might be too recognizable to sell on the open market, suggesting they could end up dismantled, sold piece by piece, or hidden indefinitely in private collections. Interpol and French authorities continue to follow leads. But as of now, no arrests have been made. The jewels, collectively worth millions of dollars, remain missing. Meanwhile, France faces uncomfortable questions about its own collection. If losing 9 pieces of royal jewelry is considered a crime against culture, what about the thousands of cultural artifacts that were never returned to their rightful owners? This theft, intentional or not, forced a spotlight on that hypocrisy. The Louvre robbery reminded the world that the debate over cultural restitution is far from over. It's not just about art, it's about history, identity, and power. When colonial forces stripped entire regions of their heritage, they didn't just take objects. They took memory, pride, and proof of civilization. As one African scholar put it, they said we had no art, yet they filled their museums with our masterpieces. For many, the return of stolen artifacts isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. It's about allowing nations to reclaim the symbols of their identity and history that were taken under the guise of exploration. And that's why this Louvre robbery struck such a nerve. Because for some, it symbolized karma, not justice but poetic irony, that a museum built on the display of looted artifacts has now experienced theft itself. As of now, the investigation continues. Authorities insist all leads remain open, but the case is quickly becoming less about crime and more about conversation. The Louvre has not commented on the cultural debate surrounding the theft, only calling the loss a tragedy for France's heritage. But online, the conversation is much broader. For every voice condemning the thieves, there's another asking, if the Louvre wants justice, shouldn't Africa deserve the same? Because ultimately, this isn't just about stolen jewelry, it's about stolen history. So what do you think? Should European museums finally return the artifacts they took during colonization? Or will it take more incidents like this before the conversation gets serious? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more deep dives into Hollywood, global scandals, and cultural controversies, make sure to subscribe because we break down the stories behind the headlines. Until next time, thanks for watching.